Hi. Um, so this weird thing that I'm doing on YouTube is just me recapping books that I've been reading and also kind of like if it leads into that recapping my day. So almost like a cute little journal book report type deal. Mostly to help me remember what certain books were about if like a new one comes out, say 20 years later, because I feel like that happens sometimes, or like a movie rendition comes out or a TV show, and I don't necessarily want to reread the whole book, but I want a general synopsis in my own words of what happened. And then I am someone who rambles, so occasionally you may hear random things about my life. um, the first thing I'm going to tell you, or myself, because I'm speaking to this like I'm speaking to my future self, but it could also be whoever watches this, um, that I have a very bad habit of starting things and then not continuing them because I don't like routine or have a very hard time changing my own very lazy routine. So I told myself months ago I was going to start recapping my books as a fun way to make it through the 30 or so books I have to read right now. It's not so much I have to read, but I keep buying books and not reading them. And I don't want to continue this trend because I'm someone who likes to read. But I made it hard on myself by creating a new fake routine. And it's just this weird thing that goes on in my head. But without further ado, the newest book that I'm going to be talking about, I know there's another one that I haven't finished. Don't look at me like that. The Second Year Single by Kara Tanamachi. I picked this book up at Barnes and Nobles because sometimes they have like blind date with a book and they give you like a short synopsis of what the book is about, and it was like love. And I had just recently gotten over a breakup or just broken up with someone, been broken up with, the end of a relationship. And I was just like, people usually fall into romance books when they're sad. So I was like, let me get this one because it out of the four books that were like wrapped up and you couldn't see anything about them, this one had the most interesting synopsis. I can't say I know anything about Kara Tanachi, but I will say I do have this thing that I do with my friend who also goes to Barnes and Nobles with me. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but I usually judge a book by the author, the picture they've taken, and if they look like someone I could be friends with. Is usually how I go. But since this was a blind date, I didn't get to see the author, and I will say that she seems pretty cool, at least from the picture and the vibes that I'm getting from the picture. But without further ado, I read these 5 chapters months ago, and I only vaguely remember what happened, but I took notes. So bear with me. So in chapter 1, you meet Sora, the main character. She's got a dog named Larry and an ex husband named Dan, or an ex boyfriend named Dan. So Dan has a wife and kids, and he lies to Sora and only wants sex from her. I think she only finds this out when she goes to a gig that he says he has and why he can't hang out with her, and he's not there. And she's like, "What the hell?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's just sex. I'm sorry." But the story itself takes place in Chicago. Um, and Sora's been getting a bunch of ads for Valentine's Day. I guess it's rolling up soon, and she's upset. Like, she doesn't have a significant other. There's not really a whole lot going on in her life romantically. And she's like, I'm just so tired of this. We need to boycott romance, and declares that there should be a solo February where you swear off men. Um, Throughout the first chapter, you find out that Sora works for like a superficial woman's magazine, the ones where they're like 5 tricks on how to keep a man, what you should wear to make your butt look big, like stupid stuff like that. Stuff you would have read as like a teenager when they're trying to manipulate your mind. So she works for them as a journalist, and she's against really calling it journalism because it's not what she wants to do, but it's the current job she has, and you got to pay the bills. And I agree, me personally, that you sometimes have to do what you got to do until you can do what you want to do. And sometimes you always have to do what you got to do, and you never get to do what you want to do. Life is unfair. So I get it. Um, We find out about her ancestry. Sora's mom is Japanese American and her dad is Scottish American. I believe he died a year prior to the first chapter of this book, so she really still only has contact with her mom. And then she starts talking to her manager, and her manager's like, "So what are you gonna write about? We need something good. We need something catchy." And she's like, "I'm thinking I'm gonna do Go Solo February, where I talk about how women don't really need men and all the things that we could be doing instead of focusing on men." And her manager's like, "You know what? I like that. Let's get on it." So that ends chapter one. Um, in chapter two, you find out that the condo board really dislikes her and her dog. She is the only person in her condo association that has a dog because they put it in the bylaws that you can't bring new animals into the condo. But she had her dog before they put the bylaws in. So she's like, "Fuck y'all, I'm keeping my dog." Um, So the first day of Solo February, she writes an article about her being very sad and about how all her exes suck. And that's just kind of the end of it. The first article goes out, and then we're starting Solo February right now. She runs to the grocery store for dog treats because her dog needs treats. I don't remember what specific thing that he does that he's required to have treats afterwards. But he does the thing, and then she doesn't have treats. So she's like, "I guess I got to go to the grocery store." So she goes to get treats. She gets ice cream, bacon, and pizza rolls because she lives a very unhealthy, maybe even slightly depressed life. Yeah, and she's getting like some of the most unhealthy things. And while she's there, she sees this guy that she thinks is super hot giving out free samples. And they're like pastries of some sort. And she's like, "Gotta get some of those." But while she's on her way, sorry, while she's over there, like on her way to get the free samples, her ex husband shows up while she's flirting with this dude. And she's like, "Yo, the universe really hates me because, like, I'm getting along with this really hot dude, and the worst person I've ever known shows up at that exact time." Um, and previously, while she's in the grocery store, she runs into this girl who like very much cares about her appearance, very Lululemon esque. I think she's actually wearing Lululemons, and like the Lululemon girl is judging her because Sora's got the most unhealthy stuff in her cart, and Lululemon girls only got organic and like cage free and all this healthy crap. And Sora's like, "I can give two craps about that. I'm here for bacon and dog treats and ice cream and anything that makes me a little more excited to be alive." At least that's the vibes that I get from her. Um, finds out Lululemon girl is dating her ex husband, which is super lame, but to each their own. You find out also that when her ex husband and her were still together, that he sent a pic. I don't know if I can say that, a pic of his genitalia to Pam. Pam is her neighbor who hates her and is also the head of the condo board. Um, and just made it super awkward for her. I don't know if that also led to why Pam hates Sora now because her husband sucked, but it's possible. So Sora's having this weird conversation with her ex and the Lululemon girl next to the hot samples guy, the guy that she was flirting with who was giving out free pastries. And eventually he jumps in to save her and pretends to be her boyfriend. And we find out his name is Jack, which is funny because that's my cat's name and he's literally right there. Um, and he comes whenever I call him. So whenever I'm talking about this, he's probably gonna be like, "What? What do you want? I'm here." Um, so Jack and Sora talk after eventually her husband, her ex-husband, and his girlfriend run off because they're just like, "Well, we tried to make it awkward here and we failed." And Jack reminds her that, "You know me. You don't remember me, but you know me." And she's like, "From what?" And he's like, "We were friends in elementary school." And he's like, "You don't remember me?" And she's like, "Piggy Jack." And he's like, "I prefer if you didn't call me that." But yeah, they made fun of him because he was kind of like a fat kid, but like a cute kid. I feel like the only, no, I guess not the only acceptable way to be fat, but the cutest form of being fat is like kids because they're so innocent. I guess I can't really talk because I'm kind of fat, but I think it's really cute when kids are fat. Not like morbidly obese, but like a little chunky. Um, yeah. So chapter 4. Those first times I was talking about were chapter 1, 2, 3. You're gonna have to bear with me as I kind of get back to remembering what happened in these first few chapters because it's been a while since I read them. Is in Jack's POV. So we find out that he's had a crush on here, that he had a crush on her every year in elementary school. And then they reminisce that Jack was a short, fat child and how he's tall, buff, and looks like a lumberjack. Which, I mean, that would make me feel good, but also like a backhanded compliment. Like, yeah, I look good now, but you're like, you were so ugly as a child. Oh, ugly. I'd be hurt. Um, but Jack's all gung ho because he had a crush on her, and he's like, the flame is reigniting, and he's like, she still looks good. I'm still in love. Um, but while they're flirting and reminiscing and just having a good time, vibing like twin flames do, or like old souls, or people who are like meant to be in each other's lives do, no matter how long you've been apart, his ex shows up. But Sora doesn't know that this is his ex, so she's like, this woman just showed up and she's all over him and acting like they belong together. And she's like, I guess this has got to be his girlfriend. But we find out his girlfriend's just like this really rich snob that cheated on him regularly and just has, they had a very toxic relationship, and she's still trying to recreate that toxic relationship. So Sora wanders off while Jack and her name was Mal kind of talk, and she's like, hey Jack, I'm rich, Jack. Like, imagine like Paris Hilton, because she's supposed to be like super rich and her parents own a bunch of hotels and properties. So, like, imagine Paris Hilton. And she's like, I heard you were looking at properties. I could buy you one, Jack, if you would take me on a date to this really fancy award show. I think it's an award show. It's something that she wants him to take her to. And he's like, no, I don't really want that. You know why we broke up? It wouldn't be a good idea for us to get back together. Because she slept with her own brother-in-law, and he's just like, yeah, I don't really trust you. Um, and she's like, can you take me to the pastry awards? And he's like, yeah, I just told you I don't trust you. No. So that ends chapter 4. Chapter 5, Sora reminisces about being in school with Jack in elementary school. And then also reminisces about why her and her ex-husband got married, because they had a pregnancy scare. She wasn't actually pregnant, but they were like, well, since we're here, we might as well figure it out. Um, they bought the condo together, kind of like trying to set up some sort of security for their future child that wasn't actually going to happen. And then they divorced when he sent his eggplant. I can call it that, can I? Instead of genitalia photo, his eggplant to Pam, the condo president that hates her. Eventually, um, sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. It says Sora finds dating apps eventually. I guess she finds dating apps, but she's not really doing that because it's solo February. But the chapter ends with her mom calling, and her mom asks her about dieting because her mom is like a size 18 and Sora's like a size 14, and then her sister Nami is like skin stick skinny, that's the right words. And she's just like, we need to get on the diet, we need to look good for your sister's wedding. And then also says, you need to find a date for your sister's wedding, like it's coming up, everything has to be perfect. She's turning into Bridezilla. And that's how chapter 5 ends. So chapters 1 through 5, just kind of setting the stage for the story. I'm trying to think about if I like the story or not. Like, it's not a bad story, but I think realistically, if it was a show, I would watch it as kind of like background noise. Like, there's nothing super interesting or intriguing happening right now. She's just kind of going through the stage that I think most people go through, where you're just like, I tried dating someone and it broke me, and now I need to be alone, and I don't think I can date people right now just because the amount of times I've been hurt by dating sucks, which is relatable. I feel like if you want like a relatable, carefree, it's I think it's carefree kind of story, then this would be the story for you. But so far so good. the way the writer writes isn't awful, which is a big turn off for me. I've read some books like Stephen King. I really like his movies, but when I try to read his books, there's something about his writing style that doesn't keep me intrigued. This book doesn't have that problem. It's written in a way that's easy to follow, easy to understand, and keeps you kind of interested. It's not gripping. Like I've read some books that I can't put down. This isn't one of those books. I don't know if maybe I'm just not in a similar state. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't love men, and I'm also not really dating people right now, but it's not relatable for me at this point, at least from her point of view. I guess because I haven't been divorced and I'm not overtly depressed. I'm like guessing what's wrong with her, but it just kind of feels like the basic symptoms of depression. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't actually know all of the symptoms of that. But if I had a friend who was exhibiting these signs, I'd be worried for them, at least for their health, because I think health is very important and big for the longevity and the quality of your life. Um, yeah, so far so good. I'd say like 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5. Not bad, not great, kind of midway, a little better than midway. Yeah, bye.